So maybe I can start then. Yes, thank you very much for coming today. I have with me our main guest speaker, a journalist, Jiro Ishimaru from Asia Press. He's based in Osaka. He's been covering North Korea since since 1993. And he has a wealth of information. Just talking to him, I realize he's been working very closely with North Koreans and covering basically the border between North Korea and China. So we have today some very important and very original information. Mr. Ishimaru is also an author. His book in English is called Rim Jin Jang, and that was published in 2010. The book comprises information that he wrote with the collaboration of North Koreans. And since we have just an hour, I'll give the floor to him. Next to him is our interpreter today, Mary.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ishimaru.
はい、今日はたくさんお集まりいただきましてありがとうございます。
I'm very glad to have very many people here today.
国連安保理で経済制裁が今日の日本時間の晩に通過する見込みになっています。
It is expected that the new economic sanctions by the United Nations Security Council will be passed this evening in Japan time.
もうご存知のように1月6日に核実験、そして2月の7日ですか、ロケット発射をしたことに対するものです。
Conducted on January the 6th and the rocket launch on February 7th.
この影響は、この経済制裁の影響はどういうものが中で出てくるのか、それを予測するのはなかなか難しいんですけれども、そのお話を少ししたいと思います。
And it is of course difficult to anticipate what impact these sanctions will have on internally, but I would like to speak a little bit about that issue first.
それから北朝鮮の中の人たちが核実験あるいはロケット発射、そして金正恩政権にどういう今思いを持っているのか、どう考えているのかについても取材したことを話したいと思います。
I would also like to speak about some of the things which have come to light through my interviews and work together with people within the DPRK in regards to people inside the country's thoughts on the nuclear test, the rocket launch, and also the Kim Jong-un government.
それではですね、まず最初に私の取材の方法についてお話をしたいと思います。
First of all, I would like to introduce some of my methods of journalism, however.
はい、ちょっと地図を見ていただけますでしょうか。これ北朝鮮ですね。
If I can draw your attention to this map of the DPRK.
北朝鮮と中国は、鴨緑江ですね。リバーとトゥーマンリバー、この2本を国境としています。
And the DPRK and Chinese border is divided by the two rivers of the Tumen River and the Yalu River.
この中国側の国境地帯にずっと私は通って、そして合法、非合法で中国に出てくる北朝鮮の人たちとこの20年ずっと会ってきました。
And for the past 20 years, I have been traveling regularly to this border area between the DPRK and China and meeting together with and interviewing people who have come from the DPRK over the border to China through both legal and illegal means.
私自身も95年、97年、98年の3回北朝鮮の中に入りました。
I personally did also travel inside the DPRK 3 times in the years of 1995, 97, and 98.
この中で皆さんの中で北朝鮮に行ったことのある方、ちょっと手を挙げていただけますか。
First, I would like to ask if those of you who have been to the DPRK can raise your hand.
お二人、3人、4人。
So there are 3 or 4 people, it seems.
行った経験のある方は共通して、感じたことだと思いますが、全く自由な取材はできません。
And those of you who have been inside the DPRK, I'm sure will share the common feeling that it is very impossible to have complete free reporting as a journalist there.
寝てる時間以外はガイドという名前の監視がつきます。
And other than the time you're sleeping, you're of course always accompanied by someone known as a guide to monitor your activities.
でそれで私がもうこれではもういつまでたってもですね、北の中がどうなっているのかっていうのはもう取材に限界があると、思いました。
And therefore, I felt that there were indeed limitations in regards to how much could be understood about the internal situation in the DPRK through such kind of reporting.
はい。でそれで私が選択したのは北朝鮮の人たちと一緒に取材チームを作って、それで彼らに中の調査をしてもらうという方法です。
Following this, I chose to work under the method of forming reporting teams together with people who are living inside the DPRK and working together with them to report.
北朝鮮に入った我々外国人はその北の中の言ったら革新ですね、それに近づこうと思っても高い壁があって、いくら努力をしてもいくらお金を積んでもその壁の向こう側には見ることもできない、人と会うこともできない現状があります。
And of course, for those of us who are as foreigners going inside the DPRK trying to report and so on, and when you're trying to look at the real core of the issue, of course, there's a very high wall and obstacle there. No matter how much effort and money you may invest into this, it's very difficult to even see the other side of this wall or meet the people who are there.
それで北朝鮮の中の人たちとチームを作って取材をするという方法をこの15年ほど13年ほどですねやってきました。
And I have been working under the method of forming teams with people who are located inside the DPRK for the past 13 years.
それで、私がずっと心がけているのは2つあります。
And there are 2 main points in which I have been investing efforts during this time.
一つは強い証拠力を持って世界に発信したいということですね。
And one is being able to share information to the world based on strong evidence.
で2つ目は北朝鮮の中の人たちに実際に取材をしてもらう、ジャーナリストとして育っていってもらいたいということです。
And the second point is for the reporting or the interviews to be done with people who are inside the DPRK to be done by people from there, but really building them actually up as journalists for them to be doing the reporting directly.
はい。それで日常的に連絡を今どうやって取っているのかということをちょっとご説明したいと思います。
And I would like to explain my methods of how I am maintaining daily or regular contact with these people.
このですね、日本の国境の川を越えて、中国の携帯電話を中に入れています。
And so first of all, I am using Chinese mobile telephones and passing them across the border. So it's people who are crossing these 2 river borders into the DPRK.
これまで中に入れた携帯電話5、60台にはなると思います。
And I think using these methods, I have put around 50 to 60 mobile telephones from China inside the DPRK.
でその多くはどっかに売り飛ばされたりなくなったり、することが多かったんですけれども、今現在10台ほどが稼働しています。
And of these, of course, many of them have been disappeared or lost along the way, but there are around 10 of these mobile phones which are still in operation.
最近はスマートフォンを入れてます。
And lately we have also started to use smartphones also.
でスマートフォンだと、通話以外にも写真とかそれから音声を送ってくることができます。メッセージ、文字のメッセージもできます。
And so through the use of smartphones, this means that we are also not limited only to using the telephone for talking, but also they can be used for sending photographs, sound files, and also text messages.
はい。それではですね、本題に入っていきます。
So I would like to get into the core of my presentation.
ね、まずお聞きいただきたいのは、2月の、これはですね、2月の8日に北朝鮮の中の人と通話した時の音声です。
And the first thing I would like to share with you is a voice recording of an interview with someone inside the DPRK, which was recorded on February 8 this year.
でこれは北部地域の、女性です、相手は。
And this is with a woman living in one of the northern regions of the DPRK.
で聞いたのは、核とミサイルについて、核とロケット発射ですね。それと、金正恩政権についてどう思うのかという話を聞きました。
And we asked her about her thoughts and opinions on the nuclear test, the rocket launch, and also the Kim Jong-un government.
で他同じような質問をたくさんの人に、電話で聞いたんですけれども、ほとんど内容が同じでした。
And we conducted very similar interviews asking the same questions of many people, and almost all of them responded in a very similar way.
でそれで今日ご紹介する人を、一つの代表例として、皆さんにお聞きいただきたいと思います。
So I would like to share this recording with you as a representative example of our interviews.
어저께 미사일 선거에 대해서 알고 있어요?
예, 들었습니다.
아, 그럼 미사일로 알고 있어요? 아니면 뭐 위성으로 알고 있어요?
우리는 위성으로 알고 있는데.
아, 위성이요? 그럼 그 성공했다고 하는 거 뭐 중계보도를 통해서 다 뭐해서 들은 거예요?
예, 어저께 낮에 한대 핸드폰이 안 와가지고 못 봐서 그 저녁에 봤습니다.
아, 저녁에 그러니까 뭐해서 뒷전적으로 본 거예요?
예.
아, 이민만 별로요?
아니 무슨 일반별로라는 게 아니고 딱 뭐해본 것보다도 그냥
네.
바다고 하니까 그 불이 안 와가지고 그 한 집에 불이 오는 집에 가서 봤습니다.
아, 그러니까 불량을 정겨운 집이 따로 있는가 봐요?
예, 거기도 또 좀 힘 있는 집에는 불이 오고 하니까.
그래요. 뭐 근데 사람들이 그거에 대해서 어떻게 생각해요? 위성을 쐈다고 하는데 막 그렇게 막 공축하는 분위기고 막 축하하고 좋아하고 그래요?
그런 겁니다.
아, 그러니까 왜 관심이 없어요? 그래도 위성을 쐈다는데?
그냥 다 먹고 살기 바쁘니까.
아,
이런 거 말해도 됩니까?
네네, 괜찮아요. 네, 그냥 제가 여기까지 이제 여쭤볼게요.
예.
그래서 결국은 그러면 관심이 없다면 어떤 사람들이 그러면 그 뉴스 보고서 좋아하는 사람도 없고 그래요?
예, 좋아한다면 쌀이 맞은 사람 좋아하겠는지. 그냥
근데 이게 정말 이 미사일 하나 쏘는 값이면 거기 주민들이 거기 사람들이 한 3년씩 진짜 10년을 공부할 수 있어요.
예, 우리는 그거 우리 알고 있습니다.
아, 알고 있어요?
예.
아, 근데 그렇게 신경을 주지도 않으면서 그런 걸 하는 이유는 어떻다고, 왜 그렇다고 생각해요?
그러니까 좀 사람들이 불만이 좀 많죠.
아, 그러니까 불만이라 하면,
네.
그거를 왜 하냐, 이런 식인가요?
예. 먹을 것도 없어 죽겠는데.
아, 그러면 그 위에서 그걸 하는 이유가 뭐라고 생각해요? 먹을 것도 없고, 밑에 사람들 못 먹는데, 그걸 왜 자꾸 핵실험하고, 이런, 위성 실험한다고, 미사일 실험하고 이럴까요?
글쎄, 다 지네 하고 싶을까 하겠죠.
아.
지네 그냥, 뭐라고 하겠네. 우리 같은 거 그런데 상관이 없으니까 그냥. 우리끼리 알아서 하고 그러니까.
아, 그러면 실제 뭐 이거는 원래 국제적으로도 그 북한 이런 거 하면 안 돼요. 거기서.
아, 왜입니까? 우리 해도 되는 줄 아는데.
그러니까 위성이라고 뭐 아무것도 쏘는 게 아니고 북한이 한마디로 이렇게 제재를 받는 상황이에요.
예, 예.
근데 이 제재를 한다고 하는데도 계속 쏘거든요. 이런 거 실험하고.
예.
그러니까 이런 이유가 정말 그 밑에 사람들, 그러니까 위에서는 자기네 목적이 있어서 한다고 하지만 밑에 사람들의 생각으로는 좀 답답한 거라고 생각하는데 뭐 싸울 그 대신 싸움도 안 주고 이런 거만 하니까 그 이유가 좀 궁금해요. 그러니까 개인적인 의견은 어떻게 생각해요? 어떤 의견이 있어요? 이렇다면?
여보세요?
네네.
여보세요?
여보세요? 네, 안 들려요? 여보세요?
여보세요?
네네.
다시 한 번 더.
네네. 그러니까 이게 이런 거 하면 안 되는데
네.
계속 이렇게 하면서 싸움도 안 주고 이렇게 해요. 여보세요?
여보세요?
네, 그러면 거기 지금 전기 사정이라고 어때요?
그러면 민네 안 옵니다.
아, 한 번도 안 와요?
예.
그럼 물 사정은요?
물도 무슨 맨날 뭐 기름 먹고 다니면서 물은 겨울에는 물은 무슨 그냥 기름 먹어야 합니다.
그래요? 그러면 혹시 이전에 말했지만 위에서 그러니까 한마디로 김정은 장군님이 장군님이 지금 이런 거 자꾸 하는데 지금 이제 4년째잖아요. 네, 근데 이전보다 좀 나아진 게 있어요?
뭐 나아질 게 있을까?
그래도 뭐 공소장 많이 하고 하는데
그냥 저기서 지금 우리 맨날 운동을 다니고 신경 찔러 죽겠다.
그래요? 그러면 사람들이 거기에 대해서 어떤 불평불만을 많이 해요?
서울내가 다 하지만 근데 무슨 그러면 그말을 못하고 하니까 무슨 일도 하겠습니까? 말하면 또 잡아가고 이쪽이랑 또 나니까. 네, 불만은 다 있습니다.
그러면 혹시 아내하고 불만을 표현한다면 어떤 식으로 표현해요?
아는 사람들 그냥 받아끼리는 말을 하는데 아는 사람들이랑 그렇게 막 어쨌든 그 국가 그런 기니까 그런 거는 속뜻하거나 그냥 말할 뿐이지 아는 사람들하고는 별로 안 말합니다.
그래요? 그럼 뭐 가족들끼리 말할 때 어떤 식으로 얘기를 해요? 얘기를 한다면?
새꼬만 새끼 이렇게.
그래요? 근데 그 장군님도 막 그렇게 말해도 돼요?
이런 말 해도 괜찮은데.
네, 괜찮아요. 일단 저희가 일단 필요해서 제가 거기 사람 말을 듣고 싶어서 하는 거니까. 네네.
김정일이 때도 그래. 무슨 같이마다 있는 사람들이라는 게 항상 강대로 일한다는 게 왜 다 사시는 게 없을까? 지금은 그냥 다 제 개인이 무슨 제 노력 위해서 사고 하니까. 저는 국가 같은 거 믿지도 않고 쩌고 솔직히 말해 한답시고 뭐 달라진 게 한 개도 없습니다. 더 쪼이고 더 복잡하기만 했지.
그래요? 그러니까 통제는 심해지고 주는 것도 없고
근데 주기
그러니까 한마디로 이런 핵실험을 했다거나 이런 위성을 발사했다고 어떤 옛날처럼 막 조화한다던가 이렇게 우리가 우주 강국이 됐다 이런 표현 자체를 안 하고 그냥 관심이 없다는 거죠.
네, 그러면 쌀을 싸가거나 솔직히 말해 한 번씩 그렇게 쌀이나 대접해줘야다 이렇게 말해.
그래요? 그러니까 이번에 그걸 보고 사람들이 저런 거 쓸 거면 쌀을 줬으면 좋겠다 이런 말을 해요. 그러니까 다른 사람들도 혹시 그 비용이 많이 들어가는 거 아는가 봐요?
알죠. 이제는 한두 배 아니까 알죠. 그러니까 더 불만 있는 거지.
그러면 혹시 이런 비용이 많이 들어간다는 건 여기서 라디오나 이런 영화나 이런 걸 많이 보고 알게 된 거예요?
그런 거 봤다는 건 어쨌든 그렇게 또 많이 들어간 거 들어간다는 거 압니다 그냥.
그래요?
네.
그러니까 이번 결국 한마디로 이번에 실험이나 우주 위성 발사 관련된 거는 사람들이 진짜 관심이 없다는 거죠.
왜냐면 무슨 한두번 알고.
핵실험에 대해 핵실험 때도 관심이 없었어요?
그냥 오빠도 하고 맨날 무슨 강연이나 하고 하니까 그냥 앞에서는 그냥 우리가 한국이다 할 뿐이지. 한국은 어떻고 수비는 어떻고 우리하고 달라지는 건 없으니까.
그리고 혹시 아는 게 있으면 욕을 한다면요. 장애인 욕을 한다면 누구 때문에 욕을 해요? 어느 부분이 제일 사람들이 기분 나빠서 욕을 해요? 어느 생각은 어떤 부분이 좀 재수없다던가 이제 조그만 놈이라던가 한다면 왜 그래요? 그 사람 어떤 정신을 잘못해서 그래요?
말하기 좀 무섭게.
아니 괜찮아요. 한마디만 해주세요.
어쨌든 건강해도 좀 어리다니까.
몇 살로 알고 있어요?
그 82년생이라고 하는데 우리도 이제는 대체적으로 그냥 한 84년생이라고 나가고 있습니다. 그러니까 어른들도 그렇고 또 할아버지 할머니들이랑도 그렇고 또 인류에다 맨날 데리고 다니고 있으니까. 네. 그래서
네네.
그런 데서 좀 보면은 우리도 사람들도 좀 보면 과마라 막 지도 다니고 자기는 예민에 과마 비싸다고 막 그런 거 하자 하고 있지 않을까.
네네. 그러니까 여자 때문에 욕을 먹네요. 네?
요즘 그런 것도 있고 젊은 게또 젊은 주먹 문화고서 따라한다고 뭐 그런 것도 어쨌든
수련을 따라한다고?
네, 좀 더 하는.
네네.
はい、今聞いていただいたのは、北部地域に住んでいる30代の女性です。それでこの人は私たちの取材協力者ではなくて、私たちの北の内部の取材協力者から紹介をしてもらった人です。
And so the interview you have just heard is with a woman who is in her 30s and living in the northern part of the DPRK. She herself is not one of our reporting partners, but rather someone who was introduced to us by one of our partners inside the country.
夫が国営企業に勤めています。
And her husband is working at a nationally owned, a state-owned company.
本人は日常的にマーケットで商売をしている人です。
And she is someone who is working at a market on a day-to-day basis.
生活のレベルでいうと、中の上ぐらいな感じだと思います。
And so in regards to their living standards, I would say they are around in the higher of the middle class within the DPRK.
この方を含めて、核実験以降10人ほどの人に話を聞きました。
And so including this woman, we conducted interviews with around 10 people following the nuclear test.
労働者、それから、農民、から家庭の主婦、元軍人、それから労働党の中堅幹部がいました。
And within these people were including a worker, farmer, housewife, former soldier, and also someone mid-level within the Workers' Party.
それで、核実験どうですか、ロケット発射どうですか、どう思いましたかっていう質問を皆さんにしたんですけれども、
And we asked each of these people the same question about their thoughts on the nuclear test and the rocket launch.
共通した答えは無関心でした。
And the common response was, well, apathy.
もうそんなものもどうでもいいという無関心が一番共通した答えでした。
Well, that's just not something that we're interested in. That has no relevance to us.
核実験も今回でも 4回目になりますね。
This was the fourth nuclear test.
1回目、2回目の時は何か大きな武器を持ったということで話題になっていたんですけれども、それにも慣れっこになったっていうことがあると思います。
And after the first and second tests, it was a very big point of discussion internally as well because of the fact that the country had obtained this large weapon. However, it seems that people have somewhat gotten used to this.
それと、金正日時代から我々が核兵器を持ったら大国になって経済は良くなるという宣伝をしてきましたけれども、実際には何も良くなったことがないと いうことが無関心の理由だと思います。
And I believe one of the reasons for this lack of interest is because, well, since the Kim Jong-il period, people had been told or been receiving the message that once we possess nuclear weapons, we will also have economic benefits in the country as well. However, the reality has been that this has not been the case.
むしろその核とかロケットの質問を私たちが繰り返しすることに対して、なんでそんなことにをずっと聞くのかというような反応が多かったです。
And actually, the most common response in regards or in response to our questions of repeatedly asking about the nuclear test and the rocket launch was, well, why are you so interested in that?
それから2つ目の、反応に多かったのは、金正恩さんの不人気ですね。
And the second common point in the responses was the lack of popularity of Kim Jong-un.
やはり若いために侮られている、非常に舐められている雰囲気がまだまだ北朝鮮の中にあるということを感じました。
And you could really feel that a lot of people are, well, not taking him seriously within the country because he is so young.
若造ガキに何ができるんだというような言い方を皆さんがしました。
And as we saw as well, everybody was saying the similar things. Well, what can such a little shit be doing?
それから3つ目はですね、共通しておっしゃったのが、今の北朝鮮の中のムード、雰囲気についてですが、恐怖が支配しているという言い方を皆さんよくしました。
And the third common response, which the majority of people shared, was also in regards to the mood inside the DPRK at the moment. And this was indeed that the mood is currently being ruled by fear.
金正恩時代になって4年が経ちましたけれども、その間にご存知のように非常にたくさんの高位級幹部が粛清をされました。地方でもなかなか報道はされてませんけれども、地方でも多くの幹部が粛清されたり除去されたりしています。
It has now been 4 years since the Kim Jong-un regime has come into place, and as you are all aware, there has been many purges within this time. This is not only those that are reported internationally, but also many being undertaken in regional or local areas of mid-level officials as well.
核実験をやった後、そしてロケット発射をやった後、平壌からお決まりの映像が届けられます。
And after a nuclear test or rocket launch takes place, of course, we are always sent the usual footage from Pyongyang.
それは核実験成功、ロケット発射を成功を喜ぶ平壌市民の姿という映像でしたね。
And this footage is, of course, of the citizens of Pyongyang celebrating the success of the nuclear test and the rocket launch.
もちろんそれが演出されたものだということは、ここにいらっしゃっている皆さんは十分に理解されていると思います。
And I believe, of course, that those of you who are here today, of course, realize that this is something which is manufactured.
しかしながら、日本のメディアはじめ韓国もそうだし、おそらく欧米のメディアもそうでしょうけれども、繰り返しその平壌市民の反応という映像を流します。
However, the media in Japan, in South Korea, and I believe also in the West, continues to repeatedly show this kind of images.
で、映像のほとんどは、朝鮮の国営テレビが撮影したもの。
And the majority of this footage is filmed by the state television of the DPRK.
あるいは日本の共同通信、そして AP 通信の撮影したものです。
Or also filmed by agencies such as Japan's Kyodo or also the AP.
で、AP と共同は、平壌に支局があります。
Both the AP and Kyodo have bureaus in Pyongyang.
しかしながら特派員の常駐を認めてもらっていません。許されていません。
However, they have not yet been allowed to have permanent correspondents based there.
撮影をしているのは、基本的には北朝鮮のカメラマンです。
And the majority of the filming is therefore being done by cameramen who themselves are from the DPRK.
ですから北朝鮮国営テレビ共同 AP のですね、言ったら金正恩さんが世界に見てほしい映像を我々はずっと見させられているということです。
Which means that these images we are seeing, whether through the state television, Kyodo, or the AP, are those images which Kim Jong-un wants the world to see.
これはやっぱり非常に大きな問題があると思います。
And I believe that this is a very significant problem.
ずっとこういう映像ばっかり見させられていると、北朝鮮の人たちのことを洗脳されたロボットではないかとか、あるいは、金正恩と一体化しているというふうに世界の人が誤解するのではないかというふうに思います。
And the reason for this is this can lead to the people around the world to be misled or misunderstanding that the people we see in these images are brainwashed robots, or the people from the DPRK are all people who are sharing exactly the same position as Kim Jong-un.
はい。それでは次にですね、経済制裁の話に行きたいと思います。
I would like to move to the issue of the economic sanctions.
皆さんお手元にペーパーを簡単なものをお配りしております。
And I have distributed a basic paper today.
まあ非常に強い制裁を加えるということを国連安全保障理事会は決めようとしています。
And the United Nations Security Council is now about to decide upon additional, much stronger sanctions.
ご存知のようにそれは有効かどうかというのはもう中国次第と思います。
And as you know, whether these will be effective or not, of course, depends on China.
それではちょっと映像を見ていただきたいと思います。一般の社会ですね、一般のこれ北部地域で撮影された映像ですが、中国の影響がどれだけ大きいかということをまとめました。
And I have some brief video I would like to show to you now, showing the huge influence of China on the local regions. This is in the northern part of the DPRK.
これは食品ですね、もうほぼすべて中国製です。
And these food items are majority manufactured in China.
ラーメン、これはラーメンですね。
So this is the ramen instant noodles.
で、飲料水、お菓子、ソーセージ。
Drinks, sweets, sausages.
これは韓国のラーメン。
This is ramen made in South Korea.
ビール、酒。
Beer and alcohol.
ミネラルウォーターも売られています。
And also mineral water is here for sale.
値段を聞きました。そうすると中国元でいくらという答えが返ってきます。
And upon asking the cost of these items, the answer comes in Chinese RMB.
米です、これは。
So this is rice,
中国産です。
also made in China.
値段を聞きましたが、これも中国元でいくらですという答えが。
And upon asking the cost, the price, the answer also comes in Chinese RMB.
これは靴下を売っています。食品以外どうなのか聞いてみました。
And so these are socks for sale. So this is asking about items other than foodstuffs.
支払いを中国元でしたところですね、お釣りも中国元でくれると。
And so when the payment is made in Chinese currency, the change that comes back is also in Chinese currency.
でこれは闇の両替所です。
And so this is an exchange place, an unofficial exchange location.
中国紙幣は毛沢東が肖像ですよね。
So we can see Mao Zedong on the Chinese notes.
で上にあるのはキム・イルソンの肖像のある朝鮮ウォンです。
And on the top we can see North Korean won with Kim Il-sung on the notes.
皆さん、キム・イルソンよりも毛沢東の方がお好きなようでした。
So it seems that people preferred Mao Zedong to Kim Il-sung.
ですから今北部地域では、もちろん朝鮮ウォン通用するんですけれども、一般的に、もう中国元通貨圏に、入りつつあると言ってもいいと思います。
And so in the northern areas, well, of course, the DPRK won can still be used. I believe it would be accurate to say that actually the Chinese RMB is becoming more of a common currency there.
はい。時間があと20分ほどなので、じゃあ質問を受けますか。どうしますか。
So now I'd like to end my presentation and move on to time for Q&A.
Thank you, Mr. Ishimaru. Any questions from the floor? Come up to the microphone, please. Yes, Sandy.
Hi there, this is Andy Sharp from Bloomberg. Two questions, if I may. I'll keep them short. With the sanctions coming up tonight, what can be done to really make the sanctions bite? And does this entirely depend on China? And could you tell us a little bit about the situation in Dandong on the Chinese border in terms of the type of goods now being traded across the border and the flows of North Koreans in and out of China, if there's been any change in recent years?
国境沿いの弾道の話についてもお伺いしたいんですけれども、ここ最近で例えばどういったものが行き来したりとか、そして人々の流動についてもぜひもし最近変化などがあればぜひ教えてください。
Thank you.
今晩おそらく、決議されるであろう経済制裁、これまでになく非常に厳しいものになっています。で、ご存知のように、今北朝鮮の貿易相手額は貿易相手ですね、90% は中国です。
So the economic sanctions which are expected to be passed tonight by the UN Security Council will be much stricter than any sanctions which have been in place until now. And as you are aware, in regards to the DPRK trade partners, around 90% of trade of the DPRK is with China.
中国が本当に厳しくやれば相当な効果が出るだろうし、これまでのように曖昧な態度であればさしたる効果はないでしょう。
Therefore, if China is to indeed take strict measures in regards to these sanctions, then I believe it can be said they will have a very strong impact or effect on the DPRK. However, if China's stance is ambiguous as it has been in the past, then this will not so much be the case.
経済制裁のポイントは大きく3つだと思っています。
I believe there are three main points to the economic sanctions.
一つは核ミサイルを含む武器のおよび武器の材料になるものの北朝鮮の輸出の禁止ですね。
And the first is regards to the arms embargo, or rather materials which could be used for the manufacturing of nuclear weapons or missiles and so on. So an embargo on trade of such items.
2つ目は北朝鮮の外貨稼ぎをこれに制裁をかけて、つまり北朝鮮のから物を買わないということですね。北朝鮮の外貨の稼ぎのトップは石炭、それから鉄鉱石などの鉱物資源です。
And the second is in regards to preventing the DPRK from getting hold or obtaining foreign currency. And so this refers particularly to, not buying goods which are coming from the DPRK. And in particular, this refers to mineral resources, the top of which for the DPRK are coal and iron ore.
そして3つ目のポイントは金融制裁です。
And the third point is financial sanctions.
でこの金融制裁がどの程度効果があるのか、ちょっと私もまだ予測がつきません。
And in regards to what kind of impact or on what level the effect of financial sanctions would be, this is something which I am also not able to yet anticipate.
ただ中国が北朝鮮の稼ぎ頭である石炭とそれから鉄鉱石などの金属ですね、この輸入を止めてしまうということは北朝鮮の外貨稼ぎにとって極めて大きな打撃になるのは間違いないと思います。
However, if China is indeed to stop imports of coal and iron ore and similar metals, which is of course the biggest part of the obtaining foreign currency for the DPRK, this will indeed have an extremely large blow.
で今ご質問がありましたが、丹東というちょっと地図を見ていただきましょうか。
And in regards to the question about Dandong, I would like to show the map.
ここですね。ここが丹東ですね。
So this is the city of Dandong.
平壌からずっと北上して、中国に出る、大動脈にあります。
So this is really one of the large vessels which you come across when you're coming up directly north from Pyongyang towards China.
はい。でこの丹東からはもう本当にあらゆるものが、北朝鮮に入っていきます。
And all kinds of items are entering the DPRK from the city of Dandong.
北朝鮮の今中国からの輸入品というのは原油がまずありますよね、原油。
And so in regards to items which are being imported from China to the DPRK, first there is fuel.
それ大きなものでいうと電子機器があります。
And also electrical appliances, electrical items.
でそれは携帯電話であるとかコンピューターであるとかその電気機械ですね。
So this is also including mobile phones, computers, and also other electrical appliances.
それから車ですね、自動車。
Also cars, automobiles.
この辺のものは丹東に行けば見ることができると思います。
And so I believe if you go to Dandong, you can see these kind of items which are part of the trade.
しかしながら北朝鮮からの輸出の稼ぎ頭である石炭というのは丹東ではなくて、港からの船積みですので丹東に行ってもそれは見えないです。
However, in regards to exports from the DPRK, the largest of which is coal, and this is being done not via Dandong, but through by ship from the port cities of the DPRK. So you would not see these when you visit Dandong.
中国側は大連が多いというふうに聞いています。
And we hear that it is the city of Dalian in China, which is the largest place where these are being taken to.
はい。それからこのですね、これ非常に大事なところなんですけれども、経済制裁をして石炭あるいは、地下資源を仮に止めたとします。
And the next point is something very important, which I would like to note. If, of course, economic sanctions are put in place and there is a stop made to the coal and other resources being exported and imported.
でこれは金正恩政権の収入が減るということを意味しますが、
Of course, this does mean a decrease in income for the Kim Jong-un government.
北朝鮮国内の経済にとっても極めて大きな影響を持つと思っています。
So I believe that this will have a very great impact on the domestic economy of the DPRK.
今の北朝鮮というのはもうほぼ食料配給制というのは崩壊をしています。
In the DPRK, at the moment, the food rations distribution system has almost completely collapsed.
一般の人たちは市場経済活動をして何とか食べているという状況です。
And ordinary people are somehow getting by and obtaining enough food through market activities.
はい、じゃあちょっと地図を見ていただけますか。
So I would like to also draw your attention once again to the map.
ここに平壌がありますね。
So we can see here Pyongyang.
この北側の平安南道というところに、大きな炭鉱がたくさんあります。
And there are many coal mines in this area, the South Pyongyang province.
ここに非常に質の高い無塩炭、煙の出ない無塩炭があって、これを中国にたくさん輸出しています。
And here there is very high quality coal, no smoke coal, which is being mined here and exported to China.
一応これは国営の炭鉱なんですけれども、
And this is a state-owned mine.
しかしながら現実には今かなりの部分が市場経済的な運営をされています。
However, it is largely being operated actually at the moment under a sort of market economy style.
ですからここの炭鉱の中にですね、たくさんの小さな会社があって、それが実際に石炭を掘り、そしてトラックに乗せると、ダンプカーに乗せるというそういう業務をしています。
And so actually within these coal mines there are very many small companies operating and they are involved in the mining itself and also the transportation, loading of these materials onto dump cars and so on.
今度はダンプカーの会社があります。運輸会社があります。
Then there are of course transportation companies who are owning these dump cars.
でこれが港まで石炭を運んでいくわけですね。
And they transport this coal to the port cities.
でそして船積みします。
Then these are loaded onto the ship.
で今度は船会社が、中国まで運んでいくわけですね。
And then the ship companies are transporting this to China.
ですからこの石炭輸出で、非常に裾野が広いといいますか、非常に多くの人が、食べている現状があります。
And so this shows that there are indeed many people who are reliant upon this industry or this coal exports in regards to their everyday life.
でその人たちが食べている、現金収入ですね。この現金収入は中国で売り上げた輸出額から当然回ってくるわけです。
And of course the cash income for these people is coming from the exports or the sales into China.
ですから中国が輸入をもし止めたら、どうぞ。
So if China stops these imports,
北朝鮮国内で石炭がダブつくと思います。
So there would of course be so much coal just remaining within the DPRK.
おそらく2009年だったかと思いますが、金正日氏が石炭輸出を減らせと指示をしたことがありました。
In the past, I believe it was in 2009, Kim Jong-il made an order to reduce the amount of coal being exported.
それを国内に回せという指示だったんですね。
And this was an order for it to be used instead internally.
でそのために北朝鮮国内の石炭の値段が暴落しました。
And at that time, actually, it led to a huge fall in the cost of coal within the country.
非常に多くの人が泣いてましたね、その時。
Which, of course, led to many people suffering, crying.
ね、それから経済制裁の項目の一つに、航空油ですね。
And one of the categories within the economic sanctions is aviation oil, fuel, sorry.
航空油、それからロケット油の北朝鮮の輸出禁止というのが出てます。
So this is an prohibition of exports of aviation and rocket fuel into the DPRK.
でこれはもちろん飛行機を飛ばすのに支障も出るでしょうけれども、
This will, of course, have an impact on their ability to keep planes flying.
北朝鮮の一般庶民の経済にも大きな影響が、大きいというか、それなりの影響が出てくるでしょう。
But it will also have a rather significant impact on the general population of the country as well.
航空油というのは、私もよく知らなかったんですけれども、灯油なんですね。灯油に近いものらしいですね。
And actually, I was not aware of this before as well, but the aviation fuel is actually quite close in substance to kerosene.
北朝鮮今、電気が地方都市非常に劣悪な状況です。
And in many rural cities of the DPRK, they are suffering from shortages of electricity.
晩も真っ暗です、多くの都市が。
So in many cities at nighttime, it is completely dark, completely black.
で明かりが欲しい人はこの、航空油を使います。
And so those people who, if they are actually wanting light, they are using aviation fuel.
中国製のろうそくより安いんだそうです。
And I've heard that it's actually cheaper than Chinese-made candles.
でこれがどこから出てくるかというと、軍隊が、横流しをするんですね。
And where this is coming from, this is actually coming out of the army in sort of illegal ways.
チョンジン、ちょっと地図を見ていただけますか。
In the city of Chongjin,
ここですね。
which is here on the map,
この付近に、空軍の部隊があるそうです。大きな飛行場があるそうです。
and there is a large Air Force facility nearby here.
晩になると兵士たちが飛行機から、航空油を盗んでいくそうです。
And I've heard that the soldiers are at night actually stealing the fuel from within or from inside the airplanes on the base.
でこれが市場に流れて皆さんが明かりを灯す油になっているそうです。
And this makes its way onto the market, and this is the fuel which people are using to keep their light and electricity.
というように、今その北朝鮮が昔の計画経済というのもほとんど社会主義的計画経済というのがほとんど、崩壊している状況の中で、市場経済が非常に今発達していると、ここに経済制裁の影響がかなりやっぱ出てくるだろうと思います。
So therefore, we can see that the socialist planned economy, which was in place in the DPRK, has largely or very closely to collapsed. And indeed, there is significant development of a market economy in its place. And this is where the impact of these economic sanctions will be seen.
つまり不景気になるだろうと、景気が悪くなるだろうと思います。
Meaning that the local economy will indeed be very worsened.
それと外貨が減りますね。外貨収入が減りますから。
And income of foreign currency will also, of course, decrease.
そのために、朝鮮ウォンの価値が下落してインフレが起こる可能性が非常に高いと思います。
Which will mean that there will be very likely a slump in the cost of the Korean or the DPRK won, which will lead to significant inflation also.
ペーパーにちょっと書きました。もうすでに、物価の上昇の傾向が出始めています。
And I've listed some figures on the bottom of the paper distributed here, but we can see that there is already an increase in the cost of living being seen.
白米の値段が2月の下旬で3800から4300、豚肉も上がってますし、で人民元のレートも上がってます。
And so we can see here the cost of white rice for 1 kilogram has increased since December of last year. The same can be said also for pork and also for the exchange rate for the Chinese RMB.
ですから私の現段階での予測なんですけれども、ちょっと金融制裁のことはちょっとまだ分かりませんが、この貿易の制限のことで言いますと、 イランのような状況になるんじゃないか、経済制裁下に置かれたイランのような状況になっていくんじゃないかと思います。
And so my evaluation or prediction of what impact these sanctions will have, well, it's difficult to say in regards to the financial sanctions, but in regards to the limitations being placed on trade, I believe it will lead to a very similar impact as was seen in Iran.
イランでも経済制裁下でですね、インフレが非常に進行しました。イランのあれはリアルかな、お金が非常に価値が落ちました。北朝鮮もこれから、ウォンの価値が落ちてインフレが進行していく可能性があると思います。
So in Iran, under the economic sanctions, we saw very significant inflation as a result of the slump or decrease in the local currency, and I believe that we will be seeing the same with the DPRK won as well.
Thank you. We can take a couple more questions. Yes, Christoph.
süddeutsche Zeitung Germany Neidhardt. Two questions. One, we have met before, and are these people that work for you inside North Korea the same as a few years ago? So how much continuity do you have with those people? And the second question is, we know the border is much less open along the Tumen and the Yalu River. I think the Chinese side even put up a barbed wire. Is it much more complicated to get information in and out for you, or do you just have to pay higher bribes? Thanks.
北朝鮮内部にいる私たちのパートナーたちですけれども、新しい人も参加してますし、前からやっている人も続けている人がいます。
In regards to the partners that we are working with within the DPRK, some of them are people who we have newly started to work with recently, while others we have been cooperating for a rather continuous amount of time.
ただ、金正恩政権になって国内の人民統制が極めて厳しくなりました。
However, since the start of the Kim Jong-un regime, it has become much stricter domestically or much harder internally.
そのために、この国境沿いではなくてもう少し南の方に住んでいる人たちですね。
And therefore, we are also looking now at not only these areas around the border, but people a little more towards the south.
この人たちが国境近くまで来て私たちに電話を今までずっとしてくれてたんですが。
And so these people who were further to the south would come near the border areas where there would be reception and converse with us by telephone.
あるいは秘密裏に、川を越えて中国に密出国をして私たちは会ってきました。
Or they would also come in secret across the river to meet with us on the Chinese side as well.
これが非常に難しくなっています。
And it has become extremely difficult to do these days.
大きな支障を受けているのは事実です。
And so we are coming up against great obstacles in regards to that.
から国境警備ですけれども、中国側が極めて厳しい警備を今しています。
And in regards to the security around the border, the Chinese side is also implementing very strict security at the moment.
なかなかその北朝鮮と中国、賄賂を払って自由に行き来するというような状況はもう今ではなくなってしまいました。
And so it is no longer the situation where, well, if you're paying the right people, then it is able or possible to cross the border freely between the two countries. That is no longer the case.
で私たちも大きな支障を受けていますけれども、幸い、携帯電話、スマートフォンを入れたもので、大体そうですね、月に10回から15回ぐらい通話はできるようになっています。スマートフォンで本当に助かっています。
And so this has, of course, posed great obstacles to our reporting. However, thanks to having been able to get mobile phones, and particularly smartphones, into the country, it means that we are still able to converse, I would say, about 10 to 15 times each month directly by telephone with people inside the country.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions? Nobody? Yes, okay.
巡回員の本庄と言います。さっきの通話記録ですね、あれを聞いておって、まあ随分自由に物言ってるなという感じがしたんですけども、ああいうのを例えば傍聴されてですね、捕まってその強制収容所に入れられちゃうとか、そういうリスクってのはかなり高いんじゃないかと思うんですけど、いかがでしょう。
My name is Honjo. I am a member here. I would like to ask in regards to the sound recordings we heard. Well, it seems that people are quite freely speaking their minds in these conversations. But I would like to ask if one of these people speaking with you was listened to by the authorities and caught and put into a camp, or they would have very significant or very high risks posed. Can you comment about that?
私たちのように中国の携帯電話で内部の人とコミュニケーションをするということを金正恩さんは本当に嫌がっているようです。
It seems that Kim Jong-un is extremely against this kind of communication, also people who are talking with us through mobile phones in China.
で、この国境住民に対する中国の携帯電話使用に対してですね、非常に厳しい処罰を今下しています。
And there is extremely harsh punishment being put in place to those who are caught using Chinese mobile phones or those border citizens using phones from China.
私たちも非常に気をつけていますが、盗聴というのは北朝鮮国内の携帯電話は今もう300万台を超えるすごく普及しました。でこれはもう基本的にもう全部聞かれているという前提で皆さんお話になりますが、中国の携帯電話に関しては、これはそう簡単ではないというのが北朝鮮国内の人たちの、特に国境住民にとってのですね、非常に常識といいますか、だからこわごわですけれども、かなり大胆なことを皆さん言ってくれます。
And so, of course, we are very careful in our work and our conversations and working with our internal partners. In regards to the authorities listening on the telephones, well, there are now around 3 million local mobile phones, so DPRK network mobile phones in the country, it's said, at the moment. And in regards to these domestic phones, everybody's conversations are being conducted under the assumption that they are being listened to by the authorities. However, it is not so simple in regards to the Chinese mobile phones. So this is meaning that people, especially those who are living in the border areas, share somewhat of a common knowledge that it's less likely that they will be listened to if they're using the phones which have been brought in from China. So this can mean that they are perhaps more open or saying things much more than they would be likely to do on a domestic mobile phone.
Thank you very much. So if there are no more questions, it's 4 o'clock, so we've come up to our time. I want to thank Mr. Ishimaru very much. Maybe you'd like to meet with him after the press conference. So I hope it'll be okay with you. And just a token of our gratitude for coming today, it's 1 year honorary membership. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。